Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. This is an interview with the Immortal Germain. I really love this one. I hope you will too. Before we get into it, though, I just want to mention Patreon. If you'd like to support the channel, you can certainly do so on Patreon. When you join, you get a chat function, speak with everybody, a direct message to me with comments and hopefully not too many criticisms, some ideas for future episodes. And of course, it's very easily available. Just go to the description. There's a link there. Next up, astral projection lessons. Work with folks now all over the world. We've had a lot of good success. All you have to do is go down to the description. There's an email. Just ask for more information. Okay, let's get into it then. Interview with the Immortal Germain. And I hope you really enjoy this one. Okay, let's get into it then. I slipped into the astral quietly, the way one sneaks into a private library where the books may bite back. My target was Count Saint-Germain. Excuse my French pronunciation. English people might say Count Saint-Germain. Americans might say Saint Germain. Either way, it's the same guy. He certainly was an alchemist, a diplomat, a rumored immortal, and a walking footnote to half of Europe's secret history. Supposedly, he lived a very long lifetime, looking, by all accounts, very youthful, and supposedly died in 1784. But a little bit more on that later. Locating him was interesting. He wasn't a disembodied soul, and he doesn't anchor himself like ordinary souls. His presence felt like a sustained chord in reality, steady, self-contained, and mildly smug. I manifested in what appeared to be a luxury apartment in London's Canary Wharf, overlooking the Thames. Expensive hardwood floors, very impressive, contrasted with minimalist furniture. A laptop, of all things, was open on his desk. A kettle softly clicking off in the kitchen. Saint-Germain stood by the window, impeccably dressed in a dark, tailored suit that managed to feel both contemporary and centuries old. He could not see me. But I felt the instant his awareness flicked toward my mind. "You are not a ghost," he said aloud. He was just kind of looking around. His voice was smooth and amused. "You are a trespasser of a different kind." "Correct in one go," I replied telepathically. "I'm an astral projector, slightly sarcastic, mostly harmless." A corner of his mouth lifted. "I hear you clearly," he said. "Your mind has a distinct texture." I said I'd moisturize. He chuckled quietly. Immortals, it turns out, do still laugh. I said, "You've worn many names," I said. The Count Saint-Germain, alchemist, magician, spy, myth. But what were you really? He looked out over a beautiful, large window overlooking a balcony, looking at the city lights. "I was a man who learned too early that death is optional," he replied. "Not through divinity, not through accident, through persistence." Images flickered through his memory, bleeding faintly into my awareness. I saw brief vignettes of candlelit laboratories, gold melting in crucibles, letters sealed with royal crests, courts where kings leaned forward to listen to him, secret meetings with Mozart, conversations with Voltaire, a quiet smile as entire empires shifted. "I studied alchemy," he said, "but not merely to transmute metals. I sought to refine the self. The body is simply another substance." "And you succeeded," I observed. "Immortality, eternal youth, a personal subscription to history. Success, he corrected gently, is learning when not to be seen. What does immortality feel like? I asked. He paused. Lonely, he admitted. Not because I lack companions, but because everyone I love becomes temporary. He touched the glass, watching pedestrians far below. Time turns people into memories. Eventually, you stop forming attachments or you drown in grief. So you chose emotional minimalism? I asked. Like this apartment? Precisely, he replied dryly. You're supposed to be dead, I said, or ascended, or vaporized, yet here you are, owning a laptop. I faked my death so many times. I did so in 1784. I made the acquaintance of a gentleman who was in the business of obtaining corpses. I paid him in gold to find fresh subjects that bore a passing resemblance to myself. So passed the legendary Count Saint-Germain. He finished with a flourish and a small bow. What's the secret? I asked. How did you become immortal? Remember, he couldn't see me, but somehow he looked me straight in the astral eyes. I don't know that I'm immortal. I may die someday. I don't know. I have lived for hundreds of years. I thought he might stop there, keeping his secrets, but he continued. In my early alchemical studies, I purchased an ancient grimoire with writing I couldn't decipher, but pictures that revealed very fascinating experiments. The one that captivated my attention seemed to point to a solution. When forced into my veins, would give me long life or maybe immortality. The book showed a brass contraption with a thin, pointed glass tubule for transference into my bloodstream. I want to give everyone a content warning right now. If you are very easily sickened, you might want to skip a bit of this ahead. But for everyone else, I think you might find this fascinating, if a little, well, you'll see. My invisible face was puzzled. I didn't think hypodermic needles were even invented then. The Count shook his head. No, they wouldn't be invented until a few generations later. But this ancient magician or scientist had mocked up something like a needle thousands of years ago. Okay, I said, but what did you inject? The book showed the brass contraption being boiled in water. A separate bowl held boiled water that had to be distilled into a glass container. Various rare plant extracts from India and China had to be added, but the most important ingredient was a preparation of pineal glands. Fresh human pineal glands, the Count said. They had to be removed and preserved within 1 hour of death. But how could you obtain fresh human pineal glands? I asked. They didn't exactly sell them in the town square. The Count's face darkened. I found a medical student who was desperate for money. He had fallen deeply in debt to the wrong sort. His vice was gambling. I told him I would pay off his debts and sponsor his remaining studies. Count, I asked, what did you ask him to do? Saint-Germain lowered his head downwards, gathering his courage. He was to find patients with no families and give them draughts that worked rapidly, putting them to sleep and stilling their hearts. Then he would remove their pineal glands. I arranged for the bodies to be removed with my other contacts. He would then bring me the fresh glands I needed for the serum in a container of warm blood. I was speechless at this horrible, ghoulish confession. I decided it was my best move just to go past any more of these disreputable actions. I said, Count, I'm deeply sorry I asked about this appalling concoction of yours. I want no further information, as I will not encourage others to commit such repellent crimes. He went into a little detail with me as to the extracts from India and China. I deliberately did not talk about them because the last thing I want to do is encourage someone out there who's a little sick to try to repeat this obscene experiment. The Count appeared, well, deeply pained and guilt ridden. He seemed eager to move on to another subject. Today I live quietly, he said. I consult, I advise, I invest, I observe. I donate freely to many charities for the underprivileged. In what? I inquired. Finance? Tech? Secret world councils? All of the above, he said. He turned from the window. Sometimes I am a venture capitalist, sometimes a historian, sometimes a donor to obscure scientific projects and philanthropist, occasionally a ghostwriter for people who believe their ideas are original. Why stay, I ask? If you've mastered life, why not move on to whatever cosmic sequel awaits? He looked thoughtful. Because humanity is still unfinished, he said, and I helped shape its earlier chapters. It would be irresponsible to leave before seeing how the story resolves. Any spoilers, I asked? A slow smile appeared on his face. You already know too much, he said, and not nearly enough. I decided it was time to leave. But before I left, I asked one final question. What advice would you give someone who can walk between worlds but still has an expiration date? Saint-Germain considered this. Live as though time is precious, he said, and think as though time is infinite. Then, with a slight bow to his invisible guest, he said, Safe travels, astral wanderer. You are welcome to trespass again. I returned to my body. That was a very interesting one because I was still interviewing someone who was physical, alive in their body, who could sense me but not see me. If you like this, go ahead and hit the like button. Share it with those of like minds. Subscribe if you haven't already, and most of you have. And comments and questions. Are you surprised the Count is still kicking? Or is it something you expected? Is there questions you would have asked him? Anything, any reply? And how about that awful, macabre way of gaining, if not immortality, certainly extended youth? This is Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.